What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ready Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. Before I toss it over to Matt, if you're tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive and join from there so we can see and interact with your comments. Matt, what an ugly, ugly performance in the NFC Championship game. How you doing today?
You know, it sucks. I think this is one of the hardest ways I've ever watched a season end. Mainly because the game was kind of over before it started. You know, Brock Purdy gets hurt on the 49ers' first offensive drive, and without the ability to throw the football and with probably the worst quarterback luck in a season in NFL history, it just wasn't going to go the 49ers' way today. So, tough one, big time.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's almost like, what were the 49ers supposed to do? The first drive of the game, they lose their quarterback with who knows what type of injury. The Eagles totally lucked out with a fourth down catch that wasn't a catch, but Shanahan didn't challenge. They snapped the ball before he could challenge. That's just the way that the ball bounced today. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but that's how it played out. I just think the 49ers and the Eagles was a heavyweight matchup that we were promised and didn't get. It's almost like there's this like feeling of like potential amazing game that we were robbed of. So it sucks, but it is what it is. I was actually surprised at how long our defense kept us a game with Brock Purdy being out, Josh Johnson being in there for most of the first half. It was like 7-7 or 7-0. So do you want to speak on how the defense performed?
I mean, they played fantastically. If you really look at it, I mean, the Eagles had the ball for 37 minutes, 26 seconds, and there were 31 points on the board, but, you know, multiple 49ers turnovers, the inability to throw the ball. The fact of the matter is the Eagles averaged 3.8 yards per play. Jalen Hurts averaged 4.8 yards per attempt. Like, you really can't ask the defense to do any more than what they did today. They dealt early with, you know, a stinger to Fred Warner. Nick Bosa got spiked in the leg, and, you know, by the end of the game, he, you know, his sock looked like the infamous Kurt Schilling blood sock from that game. They fought, man. They did everything that they could have done. And that's kind of, I mean, that's what makes it hard, because if the 49ers had even just a semblance of an offense, if Purdy just plays, you know, we're probably looking at a completely different game. And that's before, you know, you account for all the penalties and, you know, all that stuff. But I mean, at the same time, obviously that's the luck of the game sometimes, but I think that you really just, you know, you tip your hat to the Eagles. You don't want to take anything away from the players or whatever. They're going to the Super Bowl. Like, it's not their fault that people got hurt or whatever. It's just a bummer that the season ended up the way that it did, you know, after 13 straight victories, and it wasn't meant to be, man. And it's a tough thing to not even have the chance to compete.
Yeah. That's what sucks the most. And, you know, we were obviously texting in the group chat during the game, and I'm like, I'm having like this weird out of body experience. Like, I'm watching the game, but it's almost like it doesn't affect me, because it's like, this isn't happening. And if it is happening, this isn't the team that I know and love. This is almost like a completely different team. And that's really how it feels. Like, it almost feels like it's not real. I know obviously it is, but what are the 49ers supposed to do when not only did they lose Brock Purdy, but then they also lost Josh Johnson to a concussion? Brock Purdy has to come back in essentially with one good arm and play, I don't even know how long it was, most of the second half. So it's almost comical how many things went wrong for the 49ers. I just wanted to say, I didn't come away from this game feeling like Jalen Hurts was MVP caliber, feeling like Jalen Hurts was as good as advertised coming into this game. Like you said, I mean, he was like 15 for 25, under 130 yards, no touchdowns. I understand the 49ers defense is really good, but they're also going to be facing a really good defense when they go to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So the Eagles got away with one today, but best of luck.
I mean, they definitely did. Jalen Hurts looked out of his depth, to be honest. He looked very average. Again, they got 7 first downs on 7 49ers penalties, and, you know, some of that was bad calls for sure. Some of that was self-inflicted for sure. But the fact of the matter is, this might be a different game had Brock Purdy not gotten injured. Now, the fact of the matter is he did get hurt, so we can't really just sit here and hem and haw too much about it. That's the way that it goes sometimes. It just sucks, man. So
It
but
does suck.
it sucks. And any genuine football fan would hope that it would have been an even match. Like, they would have been able to compete. So I know we got Eagles fans in here, particularly one who's trying to gloat.
Yeah.
It's not a victory to gloat over, dude. Like,
it's weird. It's like
if
me
you
going
take solace out of this victory, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's like me going to the bar, finding somebody in a wheelchair and just wailing on them and then flexing afterwards. It's like, I guess, like congratulations, I guess. We had the Eagles fans in here in our last show, essentially hoping for a Brock Purdy injury. Like, it's a very weird fan base, and I know they kind of pride themselves on being trashy, but it's just a weird thing to like wish an injury and then be glad that there was an injury. Cowboys fans tried it last week with, Christian McCaffrey, and we saw how that played out. But I would like to see any team try and win a championship game with their fourth string quarterback, regardless of who it is, regardless of how long they've been in the league, a fourth string quarterback. And let's be honest, guys, it was a miracle the 49ers were even in this position and playing well with Brock Purdy as it was. Like, we were asking for a miracle of a miracle to Josh Johnson that to come in and play well and win this game. And for a little bit, it looked like maybe the 49ers could get that done still, but it ultimately proved to be too much when he also went out. I mean, Matt, can you think of another time in NFL history when a team has had this luck with injuries at quarterback?
No, I mean, this is unprecedented. So again, we just got to be proud of how many victories the 49ers were able to pull off, that huge winning streak. We were really down when Lance got hurt in week 2. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. They're 3-4. They're about to go on a little run. Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. Brock Purdy comes in and does something that's never been done before. And the team ends up in the NFC Championship game, and just more injuries against all odds, more injuries. I don't think that anybody would reasonably be able to expect that to happen. So yeah, super unfortunate. It's a tough way to end a season for sure. But I think the message that we can take away is, with most of the core of this team coming back, I mean, you would think that next year is another season where, if they can keep it healthy, they got a chance to go far. So proud of the guys overall. There's some weird stuff on 49ers Twitter about being super critical of Kyle Shanahan, which is just odd to me, but and no coach has done more with less in terms at the quarterback position with the injuries. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I'm not subscribing to the notion that Brock Purdy's injury was Kyle Shanahan's fault.
We see tight ends chip defensive ends all the time.
And that's what he said. Even in the press conference, he was asked about it. He goes, that's a pretty standard play for us. And the tight end usually chips the end on the edge there to allow, the quarterback to get a little extra time. I don't think that that's something that Kyle Shanahan did wrong. And he's responsible 100% for Brock Purdy getting hurt. Hassan Reddick made a great play on the ball. Unfortunately, he also hit Brock Purdy's elbow, and he got hurt. It is what it is. It's football.
Right. By the way, Ndamukong Suh, later on in the game, on the play that Josh Johnson got a concussion on, Josh Johnson's arm got hit in much the same way. Yeah. That happens. Now, whether or not Ndamukong Suh crushed the quarterback is something that we could talk about for sure. But, to blame Kyle for something that obviously it's a weird thing. I'm more understanding of the people that don't like running quarterback power with Trey Lance because that's how things happen. That I completely get, right? But this is kind of silly to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that was roughing the passer in every sense of the definition when Ndamukong Suh fell on Josh Johnson and he ended up getting concussed. We saw that exact play called on Nick Bosa in Seattle when he fell on the quarterback with his full body weight. Like, there were countless numbers of penalties that the Eagles either got and were questionable or weren't called on and were extremely questionable. Chris Ari, if it says roughing the kicker, was dubious at best. Jordan Mason was completely pushed into the kicker.
Oh, he was held and then pushed. Yeah, that was a bad call. I mean, there were a few. There were some. I mean, you had everybody from Rich Eisen to Richard Sherman to, it's just a who's who coming out and being like, hey man, this is too much of this referee. And so Hussey needs to be looked at by the NFL, I think. They made themselves too much the star of the show. And some of these calls were just, I mean, Chris R says it, dubious at best.
Yep. The 49ers, I mean, just to add on, even Matt Mayoko was criticizing the officials. I've never once seen Matt Mayoko criticize any sort of official. I'm trying to pull up the penalties, but I know for a fact the 49ers had
11 penalties for 81 yards.
There you go. So the Seattle in wildcard weekend, and then last week against the Cowboys in divisional weekend, they had 3 penalties each game. And today they have over 3 times that amount. Like it's just, it's laughable. And I don't want to go, saying that the game was rigged or anything like that, but I think the refs clearly had a bias in this game. Not only were they calling ridiculously questionable calls against the Niners, they weren't calling easy calls against the Eagles, including that 4th down catch, which they rolled a catch. They could have reviewed. They didn't. It is what it is. Corey's talking about had a chance to get son Cam Newton, but we chose to go with Josh Johnson because he knew the system.
Cam Newton is washed, dude.
Yeah. I think if Brock Purdy ever went down, the season is likely gone. Yeah. Shouldn't have vandalized our Rocky statue. They didn't.
That was a picture from 2021, dude.
Not only that, but it's like
also putting a T-shirt on something is not vandalizing something because the T-shirt comes off.
It happened last year. The Niners still won. It's not this sacred thing. And again, just like we said last night,
worshiping a fictional character.
Character. The writers could have made him from Detroit. Would you be defending?
Pretty sure Rocky? Sylvester Stallone was born in New York.
It's just a weird thing, a very weird thing to be that sensitive about. Rich Eisen was criticizing the refs, Andrew Siciliano. Most of Twitter, honestly, and most of the prominent sports voices were criticizing.
And by the way, the fact that Andrew Siciliano, you guys got to remember, Andrew Siciliano works on. There's 2 different guys. There's Scott Hansen, and then there's Andrew Siciliano, depending on which NFL Sunday ticket package you get. So he's technically an employee of the NFL. So if he's criticizing the referees, I mean, that's says something to me.
Yeah. They're, basically willing to criticize your employer publicly. It's saying a lot. And what I saw them criticizing was just like we talked about that roughing the kicker penalty. Rich Eisen tweeted out, I saw somebody beat their assignment and then get held and pushed into a kicker. And Andrew Siciliano replied, that's exactly what I saw as well. So it was just ridiculous calls the entire game. Who knows if Brock Purdy stays healthy, if this is even a close game because of the way the calls went. Maybe they still go a similar way. I don't know. But it is what it is. And
the conspiracy theorists will have a field day, though. NFL did not want a Josh Johnson started Super Bowl.
I saw that immediately.
I mean, we all know what would have happened, right? If the 49ers would have somehow pulled this game out, Jimmy's foot would have been miraculously healed for the Super Bowl.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, man, it was a tough game, and I think the players were sick of it, and we saw that at the end when the emotions were kind of running high. Trent Williams just completely throws a player like a pencil and slams him on the ground. Again, the officials were 100% responsible for that. Deebo Samuel's getting held by the face mask 15 seconds after the whistle's blown and the play's blown dead, and he won't. The Eagles player won't let go. So Trent Williams is like, okay, enough. And he just grabs him and yanks him down.
He had his neck like a dad holds his son when they're walking into a Home Depot. I mean, he just, yeah. I mean, you want to, obviously you want to see guys control themselves a little better than that. But there's a certain level of understanding to it, right? Because it's just, you're frustrated. The game's not going your way. You think you would have had a much better time. If your quarterback stays healthy, you get all this way, you fight so hard, and then, to be at the end of it. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. And this is the same guy who punched Richard Sherman in the face. He's got a line, and he's clearly willing to not let anybody cross it. And once they do, he's going to act on it. So I'm not mad at it. I mean, it is what it is. Refs should have gotten control of the game. I mean, they're the ones who lost complete control of the players. And it wasn't until they allowed it to get to that point that something popped off. Yeah, man. I mean, just looking back on this year, we're going to have a more in-depth show later this week, just kind of year in review. But the fact that the 49ers ended up here, just like you said to start the show, Matt, after losing starting quarterback, losing their second starting quarterback, and winning all those games with Mr. Irrelevant, it's nothing to kind of scoff at. It's a very impressive feat, and I think this game goes totally differently.
It is very impressive. And this guy coming in here saying, told y'all, listen, if y'all want to take a victory, I told you so lap off of that game, knowing the circumstances, then you do you. It's not going to bother me because we both really know what it is. Yeah. So if your quarterback averages 4.8 yards per attempt and you average 3.8 yards per play in a Super Bowl, you guys are getting blown out, and it don't even matter who wins right now. So if that's the way that you feel better about yourself, that you have to, take your victory lap like that, that's fine. That's fine with me. I'm just more proud. I'm going to be more proud of my guys for the season they had, the adversity they went through, tough circumstance to end a season, but they still had a hell of a year, man. Like if you'd have told me, again, we said it all the time, if you told me at 3-4 with our third string quarterback, we'd end up in the NFC Championship game, nobody would have believed you, Yeah.
Agreed. 100%. It is a weird victory lap to take, but leave it to the Eagles fans. They're taking it. And also, just real quick, I see players from the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, all coming out and like talk shit about the Niners. If you just got sent home by Mr. Irrelevant, I think the rule should be you don't get to then talk shit when another team beats them. An injured
particularly Micah Parsons sent out something to Deebo Samuel, and it's like, all right, if that's what you got to do, apparently, to make yourself feel better about your circumstance and only scoring 12 points against the 49ers defense and having Brock Purdy beat you and you going home to the 49ers for the second year in a row. Sure. Whatever you got to do, man. But again, we all know what it is. We all know what the truth is. So if this game is played and Brock Purdy's healthy, I mean, I think this goes completely different, but we can't play that game. Fact of the matter is the Eagles won. We'll let y'all have your victory lap. That's cool. I'm still really proud of these guys.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect kind of place to just leave that at. Kalani says, win 14 straight with the third string rookie, beat the number one seed at their place, proved to be hard, if not impossible task. Great year, somewhat wasted though. Go Niners. I don't know if it was necessarily wasted. Learned a lot of things this year about this team, about Kyle Shanahan as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kyle did a great job. And, there are people that, again, want to criticize Kyle and, anybody, who wants to, baby Kyle, it won't be tolerated and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, what do you want to blame him for? Dude took, again, with the worst quarterback injury luck in the NFL, took the team to the NFC Championship game for the third out of 4 years. Yeah. What more do you want him to do? Again, you're trying to microanalyze a macro level thing. And it's overall, what does he do for this team? They've, Kyle and John have put together a hell of a squad, a hell of a deep squad. There have been a lot of injuries that can't be helped sometimes. Again, what do you want to do about the injuries? At that point, you can only coach how you can coach, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm convinced somebody sold their soul, and the main, prize in return was the 49ers to be cursed at the quarterback position injury-wise. That's the only logical reason, honestly. And yeah, we were talking about this team moving forward. Again, we'll have a more in-depth kind of recap and preview of next year later in the week. But Adam Schefter tweeted out shortly after this game ended, unrestricted free agents this offseason, like McGlinchey, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy Ward, Charles Omenihu, Jake Brendel, Robbie Gold, Deshaun Gibson, Kerry Hyder, Samson Ebicom, Daniel Brunskill, and Emmanuel Mosley.
We got to add Azeez Al-Shire to that list because his deal this year was only a 1-year deal.
Oh, okay. And Azeez Al-Shire. So
yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys you really want to sign, but again, you're hoping that the second-year guys take a step forward, the Danny Grays, the Drake Jacksons, those guys. And then the 49ers have a bunch of picks, and they're, to me, the biggest issue is going to be replacing D'Amico Ryans. We'll get comp picks for that, of course, but, you want to see what goes on there. Again, could be a comp pick for Anthony Lynn if he gets promoted to offensive coordinator, like the rumor is. But the 49ers, I believe, have 11 draft picks for this draft so far. And that's a good base to work with. Whether you move up in the draft for premier talent or they do what they've been doing, and that's finding diamond in the roughs in the mid to late rounds. I have full confidence in this team that they'll be able to, figure it out. Don't forget, too, that the 49ers also have, I believe, the 14th most cap space in the NFL. They're middle of the road. They're not hurting for cap. Yeah. So whatever the cap is going to be, there's going to be opportunity for them to, sign some guys. They have to work on the extension for Nick Bosa and go from there. So we'll see what the offseason brings. It's just going to, today it seems hard to kind of look at that, but everything in due time. And I just, I can't state how awesome the ride was for the season. And, the way it ended sucked, but proud of the boys, man.
Yeah. Again, it's like, that's really the only logical take coming out of today. If I think it would have been a little different, and I think it would hurt more if Brock Purdy stayed healthy. Even if the officiating game was the same way, even if Brock Purdy stayed healthy, I think I would have been a little more affected and impacted by it. But it was almost like, that's not my team. Like it is my team, obviously, but that's not a roster I recognize, specifically at quarterback, obviously. But it's like, that's just something that you got to laugh at and just be like, damn, there's literally nothing you can do but accept that when quarterback is that meaningful and that position goes down, you're almost guaranteed to lose that game, especially in a game as important and playing somebody as tough as the NFC Championship. So it is.
And the one thing that I want to put out there is I don't want to hear anybody slander Brock Purdy for not going back in the game right away, or the fact that they weren't able to throw, or he should have done this, he should have done that. We don't even know the mechanism of the injury. If it was something as simple as just a nerve thing or whatever, you can't grip the ball, right? Like if your nerves aren't working, you literally can't use your hand. And Kyle said today that he's going to have an MRI on his elbow. I mean, if he has a torn UCL, that's a Tommy John right there. And he probably would miss the entirety of next season. The 49ers have a lot of questions, but one thing you shouldn't question is the toughness of Brock Purdy, because he got hurt in the first game. I think he had the oblique injury and played through that. I mean, again, for as much as all of these players, if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, if it's Brock Purdy, these guys don't lack toughness. We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo play through injuries too. So I don't know. We want to recognize the sacrifice that they go through. We don't want to belittle any injuries that they go through. And it's really hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes if you've never been there. So I definitely don't tolerate the slander against Brock Purdy for not going back in the game. I think that's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah. Especially when you can't grip the ball. I mean, it's like, what do you want him to do? It's not a matter of pain tolerance at that point. It's a matter of, I literally cannot grab a football with my throwing arm. So it sucks, but that's really what it is. Ty Anderson says, we came into this game healthiest, in quotes, a Kyle Shanahan team has been going into the playoffs. Freaking ironic. It is ironic that was what melted down.
I mean, to an extent, but again, going into the playoffs, they were still on their third string quarterback. So you have to keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
This comment I don't understand. Sincerely, I already expected some similar from Shan, D'Amico, Lynch. They don't have winner feeling for final game, always tactical and rhythm, naivety. What does that even mean? Do you understand how difficult it is to reach an NFC Championship game once, let alone 3 out of 4 years? Like, this is such a tired take, as if any of these Madden playing couch coaches could do any better. Like, just stop with that.
And it's not like they went out there and punched Brock Purdy in his shoulder or his elbow, like he got hurt. He got hurt on a play for the football. We have a super chat for 49ers throwback. Thank you very much. Hey, we need another pass rush and O-line. Mike McGlinchey and Jake Brendel have to go. Don't care what Cowboys fans think. They aren't happy.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect offensive line to definitely be worked on. I definitely am of the opinion that, Mike McGlinchey can definitely get gone. Jake Brendel, if he's cheap, you can bring him back up in like a swing role or like a backup role or whatever. I don't care about that. Mike McGlinchey, for the 11th overall pick in the draft, it's time for him to go. He hasn't lived up to where he was drafted, and all the pluses that you get in the run game are negated by as much pass rush as he seems to give up. So they definitely have a lot of things that they need to address. I think pass rushers, again, let's see what we get year 2 out of Drake Jackson. I think he had a lot of potential, but in the big spots, you know, he's a rookie, and in a scheme that only rushes 4, gap integrity seems to be something that's super important, and he just wasn't the best at setting the edge the way that D'Amico Ryans and the defense needed him to, and that unfortunately cost him playing time, but it's not something that can't be overcome with coaching and with another offseason. So we'll see. Again, they have a ton of picks. They're going to be able to supplement their roster, and it'll be something that is to be seen going forward. It's a long offseason. You know, they're going to start doing their end of season, meetings with players and going through all that stuff. And then I'm sure they're going to be on to the draft proper and free agency and all that. So lots to do.
Yeah. Not only that, but it's like, this is why fans, I think, have been a little ridiculous when, Brock Purdy's been playing well and they go, well, we need to Trey Lance. Clearly we can't have both quarterbacks. This team can't even get through the season with 3 starting caliber quarterbacks. Apparently, yes, you definitely need not only 1 good quarterback, but 2 good quarterbacks, if not 3 good quarterbacks, apparently. But the best thing about it is both of them are still on rookie contracts with, yes, Trey Lance set to make, I forget how much he's making, 9 million, 10 million next year, but Brock Purdy's scheduled to make under $1 million. So this quarterback room with those 2, maybe bringing a veteran as the 3rd quarterback, is extremely cheap for the level of production. Hopefully it's not a Tommy John injury for Brock Purdy. Hopefully it's something with a much shorter timetable for recovery, but we'll have to wait and see how this MRI goes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to cover?
We'll see. I just think that the team is still in a good position to compete going forward. Yeah. They do a good job of restructuring. The core of the team is really good. It'll be interesting to see which way they go. Obviously, everybody's going to speculate about quarterback, whether it's, run it back with Trey Lance, run it back with Brock Purdy, have a competition. Do you go out and, heaven forbid, people are going to talk about, let's go out and get Tom Brady. Let's go out and get Aaron Rodgers, blah, 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 blah. Another offseason of headaches at the quarterback position for sure. But, let's just enjoy the season that was. I mean, what a ride. The 49ers were a fun team to watch, and that hasn't always been true. Sometimes they can be very, nerve-wracking to watch, but hell of a season. And I had fun this year, man, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. So sucks to lose this way, but we'll be back.
Definitely. Also, the NFC, in my opinion, remains wide open. So I like the 49ers chances next year. Before we wrap up, I wanted to share this quote Cam Inman shared from George Kittle in repeating a reporter's question and expanding on it. Quote, how does it feel to lose the NFC Championship game because I don't have a quarterback? Pretty shitty, to be honest. Tell us how you really feel, George. 100%. That's how you should feel.
Definitely is frustrating. Again, these players know. And Eagles fans can puff out their chests all they want about this, but deep in their hearts, they know too that this was an unfair matchup or an unwinnable matchup for the 49ers. I don't want to say unfair because, shit happens, but it was an unwinnable contest for the 49ers, and the road became really easy for Philadelphia as soon as Brock Purdy got hurt. So that's the frustration that we have. That's why this season, the way that it ended, is one of, if not the toughest that I've ever had as a 49ers fan. 100%. It's one thing to be a stinky team and you're never going to make it, right? It's another thing to lose to a team that's clearly better. It's even another thing, heartbreakingly so, when you let a game slip through your fingers that you easily could have won, but to never have even get the chance to be in it because of an injury, that's probably the toughest that you can do, man.
Yeah. And I think this is the dumbest take. No team can ever complain about having to use backup quarterbacks if they're playing the Eagles. This was quarterback 4.
Was a backup of a backup of a backup, and then he went out, and so it was a backup of a backup of a backup of a backup. And then when he went out, the guy that has no arm had to go back in.
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
No, Nick Foles was a veteran quarterback, and your first backup. It's not the same thing. Congrats on the win, but this is just a ridiculously stupid take. Also,
Right.
Brock Purdy was asked about what he told Kyle Shanahan before returning to the game. He said, I told him right there, if we run a play, I can't throw deep. It's hurting really badly. If we're going to get a completion, it has to be something short, if that's okay. So he's clearly trying to battle through the pain and come back, but it just sucks. That's how it shaped out.
Yeah. It's, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Clarence, like, come in here and puff out your chest all you want, man. Like, you got the win. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
But again,
nobody's saying it's unfair. We're saying that's how it shaped out. Like, it's
right.
football. It's not fair or unfair. It just sucks.
Right.
I would feel very uncomfortable about my quarterback if it was Jalen Hurts going into the Super Bowl out of this game. That's all I know. Because he played like shit, and you guys still won.
I mean, again, I would challenge you to your attitude when Jalen Hurts was injured earlier in the year and you guys had to run Gardner Minshew out there.
You couldn't even win with that. So
right. Well, now imagine Gardner Minshew gets hurt and you got to go to his backup.
Yeah. And then he gets hurt.
It's not the same thing. And again, win with a little bit of class, bro. Like that's it. I don't expect anything from Philadelphia, so that's fine. But
it's right about par from what I expect from
right.
Philadelphia fans. But with that said, guys, we're going to wrap up this show. The game sucked. It was a great year. The game sucked. Congrats to the Eagles. Congrats on beating.
Congrats to the Eagles players. The fan base doesn't deserve them.
No. And to be honest, the Eagles players don't really deserve it either. But it is what it is. I'm salty. We'll get a bit of a rematch next year. Hopefully both teams are healthy. Both teams, because I don't want any team player of either team getting hurt, unlike some other fans.
Exactly. Exactly. You want to play people at their best. And again, not getting the opportunity to do that sucks.
Yeah.
But overall, good season for the 49ers. So
also, before we wrap up, I just want to say, what happened to anybody could play quarterback for the 49ers? Anybody could have success when they're trying to belittle what Brock Purdy's doing, right? Clearly that's not the case, and he was doing something actually impressive, but people just didn't want to give him his due. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Love these 49ers tears. Again, there's no tears, bro. The Eagles won.
Yeah. Congrats.
Eagles won. We just don't think that you're very classy.
Come back in 2 weeks when you guys get smoked by whoever comes out of the AFC. I would love to see you back here.
But they won't.
No.
But they won't.
No, they won't.
And again, if this happened to them, they'd be the first people lobbing out every excuse in the book because we've seen it.
Yeah. All right.
So,
with that said, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to go watch this AFC game, grab some dinner. It is what it is. Great game. Great season.
Props to the Eagles,
Thanks for tuning in, fellas.
They did their job. They took advantage. They did everything they needed to do. Wish they would have had a little bit more of a challenge by, us being at full strength, but it wasn't meant to be, and that is what it is. But I wish nothing but heartache for Eagles fans in the future. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just funny. It really is just funny. We could talk about this all day, so I'm not going to.
Yeah,
but the entire week it was nothing but like trashy class.
Yeah, it was. Oh, this guy should get hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, this is that. Don't come into our stadium because we'll beat you up. Don't bring your kids here. Blah blah blah. Like a week of that, and then even when you win, you got to come in and just ha ha ha. Told you so. That's the tiresome part.
It's giving like the same mentality of like a 13-year-old away from their parents for the first time. And they can't stop cursing because they think it sounds cool. Like that's the vibe I'm getting. So
yeah. And it's fine. Yeah. We've got Yankees fans in here, which is really weird. It's like going to a game and wearing a jersey for a team that's not even playing. That's this guy right here. But it is what it is. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. You're giving us views on the algorithm, so we appreciate you.
Great year. We'll be back next week. Para will probably join us. We'll do
we're going to do season review.
Yep, season review. A little bit of a preview to the off season.
Yep.
But
we'll be bringing you guys content all off season. We I mean, tough loss, but also we love draft season. So that'll be fun.
The 49ers have a ton of picks, regardless of the narrative that they traded all of them for Christian McCaffrey and Trey Lance. They are loaded with draft picks, so it's going to be a fun couple of months. All right, Matt, you want to carry us out so we can get to this AFC game?
Tough loss, but things happen, and that's the way that the ball bounces sometimes. But again, the 49ers will be back. Core is going to be largely intact. A lot of draft picks. They're pretty good situation with the cap space. So thank you as always for joining us. And well, man, at the end of the day, it's all a game, and we love our team, and it's a bummer now, but we'll be back, and we still enjoy the game. So that being said, thank you as always for joining us, and until next time, go Niners.